Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Not some, not half, all of them. Now, bring them all, achieve peace.
Good evening, or maybe it is good day. Where are you in the United States? And thank you for joining us. Today, we mark a painful milestone. 1 year since the body of Carmel Gat was recovered from a tunnel in Gaza, alongside with other 5 hostages. Carmel was abducted from Kibbutz Be'eri on October 7th, 2023, and held in Gaza in the tunnels for 11 months before she was murdered brutally in captivity. I welcome you to our podcast, a part of a special series with Hostage Families Forum, and it is on day 695 of the Gaza War. My name is Tal Schneider. I'm a political and diplomatic correspondent for the Times of Israel. Each week, we bring you this conversation in partnership with the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, the organization that was established by the families of those who were taken to Gaza during the Hamas October 7th massacre. We urge you, as global citizens, to raise your voices and share this episode. You can share it online, send it to your relatives or to your friends. Please keep the hostages visible, keep their stories alive. Speak to your colleagues. You can join rallies, you can post on social media, or you can even send ideas to our forum, to the Families Forum, of what you think we should do more in order to keep the story alive. Every action matters. Also, if you would like to support the Hostages Forum directly, it's a non-governmental organization, of course. If you want to support it, you can scan the code that you see now on the screen. You can scan it, and it will lead you to a donation page, and it will help the families to sustain their global advocacy efforts. This slideshow with the code will appear also at the notes to the episode, and also we will bring it back on at the end of our podcast. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here. We are joined tonight by Gil Dickmann, cousin of 40-year-old Carmel Gat. As I said earlier, Carmel was abducted from her home in Kibbutz Be'eri. I'm sorry. On October 7th, her mother, Kinneret, was murdered, and her sister-in-law, Yarden, was taken hostage. Before her sister-in-law, Yarden, was dragged away, Yarden managed to save her baby, passing her into the arms of Carmel's brother, Alon. So we speak to Gil, a cousin of both of Carmel and Alon, and he knows the entire family. The entire family has suffered such an horrific outcome from this massacre. Both mom Kinneret and daughter Carmel murdered. Gil, thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your voice with us at such a difficult time, and exactly on the year of Carmel's, the date that her body was returned from Gaza.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all the audience for joining us and for sharing the message. It is so important to hear the voice of the hostages all over the world.
So tonight when we mark the 1 year date for this horrific sin, we have Israel's Security Cabinet convening just as we speak right now in Tel Aviv, and they're planning to move ahead with reoccupation or another military operation of the city of Gaza. Obviously, there is Gaza Strip, which is a wide area, and then there is the city of Gaza, which is the main biggest city, used to be the main biggest city. How do you view this moment, given everything that is still on stake with the hostages?
Well, a year ago, we heard the news that something happened in Rafah, and we weren't sure exactly what it was. And there were rumors revolving the names of the hostages that maybe something happened to them, and the name of Carmel came up, and I was trying as hard as I could to deny and to tell myself that this is not happening, no way. But when I look back, the days before then, I see that we were actually very much aware of this danger, of this risk to the hostages. We actually said, if you get into Rafah, if you take the IDF into the city of Rafah, you're not only going to danger the innocent citizens of Rafah, which were so many of them, also you're going to put the lives of the hostages in danger. We knew that the hostages were there. We actually knew that Carmel was supposed to be there, but we said it in general terms that it is going to put the lives of hostages at risk. And Netanyahu and the cabinet decided to do it anyway, even though there was a deal on the table that Carmel's name was actually on the list. Hirsch's name and Eden's name and Almog's name was also on that very list for hostages that were supposed to come out on this deal that was on the table. And then Netanyahu decided to get into Rafah anyway and put the lives of the hostages at risk. And what happened was, for as much as we know, the forces of the IDF came right nearby the place where Carmel and the other hostages were held, and their captors feared that they're going to try and rescue them, so they decided to execute all 6 hostages, and they ran away. And that's how she was murdered. So she survived 328 days in these horrible conditions in the tunnel, and just to be executed when the IDF was so close. And I'm telling you all the story not to make you sad or to make you angry at the soldiers, because I'm not angry at the soldiers at all. I don't think it's their fault. They were sent on a mission. But I'm telling you this story because I feel like we're in some sort of a loop, that the very same thing is about to happen again in Gaza City. There are still hostages held in Gaza City as we speak. They're there. And the plan to go into Gaza City with forces of the IDF, this plan is going to put the lives of hostages in danger. And there is a deal on the table. A deal that begin with bringing us at least 8 hostages, maybe even more than that, and then we can go on and get all the other hostages. And the fact is that the security cabinet and the prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu, decide to go on with the occupation of Gaza like this is the most important thing. And if you ask most of the Israelis, and there are many polls that were done about this, and most of the Israelis will tell you that the most important thing is to get the hostages out. It is way more important than occupying Gaza. And when soldiers are going into Gaza and they're fighting, what they're fighting for is not for the occupation of Gaza. They're fighting to get the hostages back. And so when I see the security cabinet assembled to this meeting today, somewhere in Tel Aviv, in a secure place that they didn't exactly tell the media where it is. But when I see them, I feel like they are disconnected from Israeli society. And we went to the streets last week. We went out to the streets 2 weeks ago in hundreds of thousands of people to tell the security cabinet, to tell the government, and to tell the whole world that what the people of Israel want is an end to this war that will bring all the hostages home. That's what most of Israelis want. That's actually what most of Likud voters want. In a recent poll that was just done a few days ago,
Right.
that's the right thing to do.
So, Gil, when Chief IDF Eyal Zamir says, we learned our lessons from last year, meaning from the time where they were approaching Carmel and the 5 others, and the terrorists heard them and executed those 6, beautiful hostages. Chief IDF says now we've learned the lesson and we will not get close. We have intelligence where they're at. We know we're not going to get close to them. So we are, we'll try to put, make sure that their lives are not a danger. Do you trust that? Because he also said that this type of operation may also cause the death of them. I mean, he gave some contradicting assessments.
Yeah. So first, just like you said, there are many contradictions, and that's very stressful for hostage families. Obviously, to hear that the chief of staff of the IDF contradicts himself. But I think what he's trying to say to the government is that if you get inside Gaza City, you're going to put the lives of hostages at risk. We're going to take all the measurements possible into account. Of course, we'll try our best, but our best is not good enough. And I think that the proof for that is not only the death of Carmel and the 5 other hostages who were with her, but actually the death of 42 hostages who were taken alive into Gaza, were kidnapped alive, and were killed or murdered due to the war in the months after October 7th. It's including Yossi Sharabi and Itai Svirsky, who were held in a building that was bombarded by the IDF Air Force, and it killed Yossi Sharabi, and Itai Svirsky was killed just 2 days later. It's including Ron Sherman and Nick Beiser and Elia Toledano, who were accidentally killed by an attack of the IDF, and Yotam Chaim, Alon Shimri, Samer Talalka, who were accidentally shot by the IDF, and the Ad Katsir, who was executed by his captor because they somehow feared that the IDF was approaching, just very similar to what happened to Carmel. So many incidents that tells you that you can't really secure lives of hostages while carrying out a war in this zone.
Plus,
And I know
plus,
they're trying their best. I know that the soldiers are doing whatever they can, but it is just it was the IDF spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, who told me just a week after Carmel's body was found, and after her burial, he said that maybe it is not a risk that you can actually manage, and you can't get into Gaza City thinking, okay, I'll try not to hurt hostages. That would eventually mean hostages getting hurt, and this is exactly what Hamas wants. Hamas wants for us to pay the price for getting into Gaza City, so they might even decide to execute hostages so we can pay this price. So the
plus,
best that the IDF can do is just not enough.
Plus, I think that the terrorists keep smuggling them from one point to another, from one tunnel to another. They do it during night, putting costume. I mean, this is stories that we heard for so many hostages. They put costumes, like, they dress them up as women, as Muslim women with the veil and everything. And then they move them around. And the IDF, with its good intelligence, can't really tell the specific location all the way. And therefore, the military campaign may just bring them to their end either by bombing, a military direct bombing, or by their terrorists just executing them. This is a crucial point.
Exactly.
The military
Yeah,
can't
and
really vouch for their lives.
yeah, that's right. And it's important to remember that some of the cases, the hostages were moved and the IDF didn't know. And in our case, actually, the place where they were held, the IDF, they knew that the 6 were actually held in this place, in this very tunnel, but they thought that the terrorists probably moved them because they moved other hostages when the IDF went into Rafah. Other hostages who were held in Rafah were moved to Khan Yunis. So they said, okay, if they moved these hostages, they probably moved the other hostages. But 2 days before the murder of my cousin, actually, the IDF forces encountered another hostage, Farhan al-Qadi. Well, actually, I met him just a few days ago.
A
Accidentally,
Bedouin, a Muslim
yeah,
Bedouin from the southern part of Israel.
yeah, and they didn't know that he wasn't supposed to be there, but they found him there. He said to the soldiers that he met there, go on, try to find more hostages. Maybe there are more
Hear
Israelis
that.
there. He even said that he heard
Hear
just
that.
a few days before then the voice of a young woman. We don't know whether it's Eden or Carmel saying Boker Tov, good morning in Hebrew. And there is no other explanation for hearing a Hebrew sentence in Rafah, uh, except that these are hostages who were hidden there very, very close to where Farhan was held.
Yeah,
And they decided for 24 hours, the forces decided to stop and to reevaluate, and they decided to go on and with their mission. And from what we understand, that's exactly when the captors decided to execute the hostages. So,
that's
as I
happened.
said, and it's very important for us to clarify, I have zero complaints for the soldiers who were there. They were actually doing their mission, trying to save their own lives, and they were there to get hostages out. They wanted to get the hostages home. That's the main mission why soldiers are going into Gaza. But when people send them into these missions without actual knowledge of where the hostages are, without the actual capabilities of saving lives of hostages, that would mean risking hostages. And we know that there are hostages in Gaza City right now. Their lives are going to be at risk if this is actually going to happen.
Gil, you spoke last night at the rally in Tel Aviv, and you called on President Trump to take action. And you said, "My name is Gil. I'm an American citizen. My cousin Carmel was murdered in captivity a year ago." You were not the president then, and you were not there to save her. But if you have been the president at the time, maybe she would be alive today. You want to explain or to elaborate? What did you mean? What do you think the president can do?
Yeah, so I'll start with saying that President Biden done an amazing job and made the actual deal of the November deal possible, the November 2023 deal that brought um, tens of hostages alive, including Carmel's sister in law, Yarden, who was brought
Yarden.
back on the 54th day of the war, the sixth day of the November deal. She was brought back home alive and well. And that's we have so much to thank him for that. But we know that after on the eighth day, Carmel was supposed to be on the list for the hostages were supposed to come home, and the ceasefire collapsed just a few hours before Kamel was supposed to come home, and they went back into fighting. And for months after months after months, there was no deal. And there were a few reasons why. At first, Hamas did not want a deal. And they said the only way we're going to make a deal is if you give us back Jerusalem and all these kind of nonsense. It wasn't really serious. But a few weeks later, there were actually opportunities for a deal to be signed. And we saw it, an amazing show of Hamako in Channel 13 here in Israel, an amazing job by Raviv Drucker and Neria Kraus. They covered all of it and all the chances that the Israeli government had to sign the deal that were missed. And you see the people of the Biden administration, and they were trying to push Israel towards a deal. And by Israel, I actually mean to push Netanyahu towards a deal, but they didn't want to make it public because they didn't want it to appear as if there are differences between the Israeli government and the American administration. And so they were trying to balance it all out for months after months after months. The Israeli government did not want to make a deal, and Netanyahu did not want to make a deal, mainly for political purposes, because the partners of his coalition, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, said, if you're going to stop this war and get hostages out, we're going to dismantle your government. And he decided that he's going to pursue the war and continue with it. And I think there were many moments in 2024 in which Biden should have put this deal on the table and said, okay, now you're going to sign it. This is the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do for Israel. This is what most of the Israelis want. Just do it. And he didn't make it. I think Netanyahu tried to fool him. And for some of the time he succeeded. Some of the time it became election year for Biden, so it was too late. And when Trump got into office, it was after Carmel's murder. And it was too late for her. But we saw that just 3 days before his inauguration, on January 17th, the deal was signed and hostages came back. And Romy Gonen and Doron Steinbrecher and Emily Damari, they were all the three first hostages to come out in this January 2025 deal. Carmel was supposed to be with
One
them
of
in
them.
this. Yeah, and it was so close, and we missed this chance. So this is why I say that if Trump would have been president then, maybe she'd be alive today. I don't know. But what I do know is that Trump now has the power to push not only Israel, but also Hamas, also Qatar, into a deal that'll end this war and get hostages out. Trump is the strongest man on earth. And if he decides something's going to happen, I think it is going to happen. And I really think, Biden brought one deal, one hostage deal, very successful deal that brought many hostages home. Trump brought an amazing deal that brought many hostages home, and they're now tied 1-1 in this battle of deals. Trump can bring more deals and the ultimate deal that'll bring all the hostages home. And I urge him to do so. I think the guy who wrote Art of the Deal is exactly the right guy to put the ultimate deal on the table that'll end this war and get all the hostages out.
We see those photos of beautiful Carmel always smiling and dancing. And we learned from people who came out from captivity how she was trying to help people inside the tunnels. Can you tell us can you tell us about Carmel before October 7th? What kind of person and family member and professional she was, loved traveling as we all see.
Yeah, this photo is amazing because it captures so much of her. This smile full of light, and the fact that she's traveling in India, and this is exactly how she loved living the life. She loved traveling. She loved meeting new people and speaking to them. For her, it didn't matter whether they were Jewish or Muslim or Christian, whether they spoke English or Arabic or any kind of language that they speak in India. She was open to any kind of person. And I would always describe her as sort of a therapeutic person. Not only because she was a therapist herself, but because she had this energy in her to feel the person in front of her and to try to understand whether what they need now is a conversation or a massage. And she could do both. She, an amazing person, loved music, and we would share and speak about music podcasts that we both loved. And it's such a loss that to think about such a free bird being in this dark tunnel, locked, without the ability to be outside, without sunlight, without her family. You can see her in this picture with Geffen, baby Geffen, who was 3.5 years old when Carmel was murdered, when Carmel was kidnapped, and when Geffen herself was kidnapped. And this very morning, they were together in the safe room, actually. And there's a picture, I don't know if you have it, but in which Geffen is with her arms on her ears because there are bombings outside. And Carmel is trying to read a story to her to try to get her to stay calm in this very very strange morning that they had on October 7th.
For
And
our listeners and for people who watch us, Geffen is the nephew, and she is the daughter of Yarden, who was kidnapped also. Yarden was holding Geffen on her hands, and when the terrorists abducted her, she sort of threw the baby to her husband, Alon, who is Carmel's brother, and he managed somehow to run away with the baby and save her life. And while doing it, Yarden was abducted, Carmel was abducted, and Kinneret, who is the mother of Alon and Carmel was murdered in, I think she was murdered in the kibbutz
Yeah, she was
while,
murdered inside the kibbutz. I actually found the video of her being led by the terrorists, and after that murdered by them. I found it on Telegram. In the days after October 7th, that's how we learned that that happened. You told the story correctly. Alon and the Yarden and Geffen were kidnapped in a car, and they managed to jump out of the car. They started running. That's when Yarden handed Geffen to Alon. You can see Carmel, and this is all the little brother who wasn't in that house that day. And we know that Carmel, at first here's all the entire family. It's all the little brother, and behind them it's Yarden waving, and it's Alon taking the picture, and Geffen, and behind him Carmel and her then partner Ruvi, and
and
for
so we learned that Carmel was actually practicing yoga inside the tunnel in order to help her fellow citizens. I mean, when we all know there were like 251 people who were abducted on that day, and Carmel was, coming to her senses immediately and trying to help other people in captivity, in the tunnels, in the darkness, and telling them to do yoga practices down, 30 meters underground, to just help them breathe and how do you? I mean, it's incredible story.
yeah. So what we know, we learned on the 50th day when Alma and Noam Or from Be'eri came back, and it was the second day of the November deal. And Alma was 13 years old at the time, and her brother Noam was 17 years old. They were both kidnapped from Kibbutz Be'eri. And when they came back, the very night, I got a message on Facebook Messenger from their uncle Elad, and he said they told us that they were with Carmel the whole time, and that's actually the first that we heard that Carmel was actually okay, and they weren't held below the ground. They were actually in an apartment together. But later we know that Carmel was transferred to underground to a tunnel, and what they said was that they put them the brother and the sister in a car. Carmel was already in that car, and they passed right through the corner where Carmel's mother, Kinneret, was murdered. She saw it with her own eyes. That's how she learned that her mother was no longer alive. She didn't know anything else about the rest of the family. And when they came inside the Gaza Strip into one of the camps in the central part of the strip, they were put in a very tiny baby's room together. And at first, the first few days, there was a captor that was vicious towards them. That's what Alma told us. We're not getting into details. That's her story to tell, and one day I'm sure she will tell it. She's an amazing, amazing young woman, and she told us that Carmel was sort of a guardian angel for them there. She, as a 39-year-old woman, and the 13 and 17-year-old teenagers, she was sort of their mother in captivity, a guardian angel that practiced both yoga and meditation and guided imagery there in captivity. They had a notebook in which they wrote songs together and their thoughts and their imaginations. She helped them imagine how it would be to actually be released from captivity and how they are going to spend a day together in Netivot. That's what they dreamt about, to go and shop together. And it's amazing to me to think how many energy it took from her in these very dark places, not only because of the darkness of the tunnels, but also because of the darkness of her situation. Knowing that her mother was murdered, she knew nothing about her father. She knew nothing about herself when she's going to come out. She probably realized that the teenagers are going to come out before her, but even that wasn't certain. And she told them, we're going to be fine. We're going to get out of this. She quoted a song by Evyatar Banai saying, when I'm getting out of this, I'm going to buy presents for everyone.
Wow.
And they were just, yeah, they're repeating these words. "כשאני יוצא מזה, אני קונה מתנות לכולם,"
I
in
just want
Hebrew.
to mention, Gil, that the two kids that you mentioned that she spent time with during the first few days, Alma and Noam Or, right?
Hmm.
Right. Those two kids. I mean, she was just 13. Her brother was 15 or 16. Both they lost both parents. Their both
That's right.
parents were murdered, and they are back in Israel, alive, living with grandparents. But their father, Dror Or, is one of the 48 hostages that we keep talking about, because he was murdered and kidnapped, and he's still being held in Gaza. And also, Gil, I want to take the opportunity to mention the names of the people that Carmel spent many weeks with together in a very, very narrow tunnel in horrific condition. We all seen the videos, the footage. So Carmel, in her last few weeks of her life, was together with Eden Yerushalmi, Hersh Goldberg Polin, Alexander Lubanov, Almog Sarusi, and Ori Danino, all Israelis that were either partygoers, Nova festivals, or from the kibbutzim, from kibbutzniks, and some of them were working in the Nova festival, and some of them were trying to save life of others, and they had to spend their last few weeks together, and their bodies were found together in the same very, very narrow and pathetic tunnel. It's just horrific scene. I think one of the most devastating days of the war. And I just want to ask you, when your family got the message that day, I mean, what I mean, with putting aside the public interest, what did your family inside? What her father, her surviving two brothers, what did they feel? What did your family think or felt those days?
Well, it was exactly 1 year ago. It was a Saturday evening when the rumors started, and it first actually came on Telegram. The names of the hostages. It was the name of six hostages, the six names that you mentioned. And at first we thought, okay, it's not real. It's fake news. They're using Hirsch and Carmel's names because they're both famous, and it's not real. But after a few hours later, we started realizing that there was probably some truth in it. And some of the families of the hostages knew that these six hostages were held together. And we only knew a part of it. But from what we understand, they were together for a very, very long time. For months after months after months, they were held in the same area around Rafah. They weren't moved very much, maybe a few times, but we're not sure. But we know that the six of them were together. And when we got these six names, we started, messaging with the other families. I remember start messaging with John Polin, and trying to understand whether they know something that we don't, and with the family of Eden Yerushalmi to try to figure out what they knew. And we were all in this nightmare for hours, in which people were sending messages saying we're sorry for your loss, and we were like, what loss? We know nothing. And it was 3:30 a.m. when the IDF officer came into my mother's house in Tel Aviv. He knocked on the door, and when they knock on the door, you realize what's going to happen. And he came and he said, I'm sorry to tell you that Carmel's body was found and brought back to Israel. She was murdered 2 days ago. And it felt like the sky just fell on top of our heads. It was what we feared. It was what we warned from for such a long time.
You spoke
And
about it. You spoke about it publicly. There's like plenty of videos of you speaking in the Knesset or in rallies saying this is a real danger. We can lose them, and you said that. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's
yeah. There's actually a video of my sister Shai. We were together in Jerusalem, right near the house of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and she said, "Bibi, how can you promise me that my cousin is not going to be the next in line?" And it's just I became friends with the families of hostages, other hostages who were murdered, both the Buxtab family, the family of Yagev Buxtab, who was murdered in captivity, the family of Chaim Peri, who was murdered in captivity, and Karmit Palti Katsir, Elad Katsir's sister, and Merav Svirsky, sister of Itai Svirsky. And I became very close with them, because I felt we were connected in some way even before then. But it always felt like it was around the corner that some of the hostages won't survive if we continue in the same path. And
Right.
but I think and we even warned. Shai, my sister, warned specifically about Carmel, but we were trying to be very cautious about it, not to say it in actual words, to say Carmel might be murdered if we don't act now. But Alon, her brother, actually said it a month before it happened. And I think even after saying that so many times, when the rumors started, we didn't want to believe. We wanted to tell ourselves, okay, maybe it's some kind of a mistake. No way that this is actually happening. But then they came, and Shai, my sister, and all Carmel's little brother, they went together to identify the body. So there's no question about it. Carmel was actually murdered. We know it now for a fact. And it's both the the sadness and the utter darkness that came upon our heads that day, for the fact that she will no longer be with us, that she will never come back to hug her father and to learn that he's alive, and to hug her nephew Geffen. And the fact that we had to tell Geffen that her mother was found after so many days, but her aunt is not going to be found, and she's not coming back. After we said so many times that she will be come back and she will be fine, to tell her that it's not going to happen eventually, it was just beyond devastating. And it then became then came the anger for how how, how come we didn't make it, and we didn't succeed in preventing this from happening. And this is something that I wake up with every morning.
The
Uh,
tragedy is
we
bottomless, really. It's
it's
endless
it's it's a tragedy, and it's the fact that we know that there were so many opportunities to stop this,
opportunities to save her.
and there are still so many opportunities to save the hostages that are there now. And we're a year later. Carmel was held in captivity for 11 months, and it's been
Alive,
12 months since she was murdered. So the
murdered.
hostages that are there are now held for 23 months. It's been longer since she was murdered than the amount of time that she was there alive.
We
And to
don't know,
think that they're surviving there and that we're not doing all that we can to save them is something that I can't live with.
and we don't know what they know and what they are aware of, but we do know because we've seen footage. We do know that they're being starved. We do know that they're being held in horrific conditions. They can die of starvation. And you guys, I mean, the body weight in which Carmel came back. She was also
Yeah.
starved. Gil, I want
She
to
was
ask you.
starved, and Eden was also starved. Hirsch, the hostages that were with her, they were starved. But when I saw Evyatar David's video or Ron Braslavsky video, this is beyond starvation. This is it's just I can't put words into it, and you see I'm trying to put words into everything, and this is something beyond what I can speak about. The fact that the world does not understand that Hamas does not give food to these hostages, and they do it on purpose. They starve them on purpose, and the world does not understand that. The world does not understand that Hamas starves the people of Gaza on purpose, and specifically the hostages on purpose. And the fact that Qatar is still a legitimate country, while they finance Hamas that starves these hostages. And Evyatar David is, as we speak right now, might have nothing to eat and may not have eaten for, I don't know, a week, is something that I really can't live with. And I think it's my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. She survived the Holocaust. To think that my my cousin and the other hostages are still going through the same thing. We have an independent country, an independent Israel right now, and we don't stop it. Is I can't. I can't deal with it. That's why I'm here. That's why all of the families of the hostages who were murdered or killed in captivity, they are still a part of this mission to save the hostages because we can't let this happen.
Gil, you became a very visible voice in the movement for the hostages very shortly after the massacre, and you probably had to stop your own life, and just do it all the time. What can you
Yeah.
tell us about that? I mean, it must be very hard on a personal level to just. I mean, this massacre attacked your family, and you had to put everything on the side in order to devote yourself for that.
Yeah, on October 7th, when we realized what actually happened, when I saw Kineret Carmel's mother's video and realized what happened, the first thing was it was clear that my life is not going to continue the same way they were on October 6th and before then. And I put everything on hold and said, okay, I'm going to come back to it later. I'm going to come back to my professional life later. I used to be a creative director, and I'll come back to that later. I'm going to put my education on hold. I was supposed to start an MA in psychology in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, actually the same university that Carmel went to. We were supposed to study together. She's studying occupational therapy, and I'd study psychology. And we put everything on hold, and to fight for her life, to fight for the lives of the hostages. It was at first Yarden and Carmel, then Yarden came back. It became only Carmel, and I've. It feels like sometimes people ask me how do you do it, or how do you do it, and I think for many of the hostage families, when I encounter other cousins of hostages or relatives of hostages, nobody asks me that because we're all on the same boat, and we all feel like no way we can continue living our lives while our loved ones are there. And even when they come back, no way that we can. Okay, now I put it on hold. I'll get back to it because there are still hostages there. And after this tragedy happened to us, to our family, it feels to me like we became sort of a black flag to tell the whole world and to tell Israelis that, and if you continue to do things as you did before the murder of these six beautiful hostages, the same thing is going to happen again and again. So I feel as if this is my job, my mission, and Carmel's brothers all and Alon and her father Eshel, they don't like to be interviewed. They hate this, but they decide to
Yeah.
do it anyway
You're doing
because
you're doing it on their behalf because we haven't seen the father and the two brothers. I mean, they remain the father and two brothers from this original family, and the mother and the daughter were murdered, and you became the voice of them
yeah.
everywhere.
So Alon and all they interview sometimes. Eshel interviewed maybe once, but that's it. They hate this, and always felt like Carmel doesn't have a mother to fight for her because
Right.
Kinneret was murdered,
So this
and
is, this is a tough question I want to ask you, and if you cannot answer that, that's okay.
mhm.
How do you think that mom Kinneret, mother
Wow.
Kinneret, and daughter Carmel would have wanted to be remembered? How do you? I mean, we have the second year anniversary of Kinneret murder coming up next month,
Yes.
and of course, Carmel was murdered a year ago today, minus 2 days, probably 2 to 3 days. We don't know the exact hour. What do you think, both of them, kibbutzniks from Be'eri, lovely people who love their kibbutz life, how do you think they can be commemorated?
Well, I think it's it's two different questions for Carmel and for Kinneret, actually. I think if Carmel knew that you described her as a kibbutznik, she would probably yell at you or something, because she was born in Kibbutz Be'eri and she was kidnapped from Kibbutz Be'eri, and it was her parents' house, but she was from Tel Aviv. She and she was a citizen of the world in a way, and such a free bird and a traveler. And I think for both Kineret, who was a proud kibbutznik, born in Dgania Bet, and then her life, her entire life in this beautiful house that you see here in the kibbutz. I think the focus for both of them would be to focus on how to be meaningful and helpful towards others. And you saw it with Carmel being that therapeutic person in captivity. And if you knew Kineret, and it's such a loss that many people will never know her, wouldn't even have to explain how she would measure herself and the people around her for how much they were able to give to other people. And when we try to commemorate them, we do it in two different ways. We do it in doing yoga for Carmel,
Yeah.
which is something that we still do
This
week
became
after
very,
week.
very famous in Israel that people
Yeah.
are doing yoga for Carmel. It's you can see images of people, hundreds of people doing yoga together for as a Carmel heritage message. It's beautiful to see that.
Yeah, and it's because she loved yoga. Many people even think that she was a yoga instructor. She wasn't. She just was she loved yoga, and it's a way of remembering that there are still hostages there, probably doing the same thing, probably doing yoga themselves there in captivity. So it's a way of remembering the hostages. And the other thing that we're doing is they both of them loved traveling, and Kinneret specifically loved traveling in Israel. And we're marking a landmark of the trail between the Carmel and the Kinneret, and it's a part of Shvil Israel. And it would be a place in which you don't only travel together as family, but you also learn about the communities along the way. You learn about the ways in which you can help the communities. You can meet with them and see how they can help you. It's a way of knowing the people around you and the different cultures around you, around us in Israel, while remembering Kinneret and Carmel. The focus is always what we can do here and now for the people around us, and this is our way of commemorating them.
It's a, it's beautiful. I mean, for those of you who don't know, Kinneret, Carmel, Yarden, they're all names of regions in this country. So it's amazing that your family is such a nature
Yeah.
and people loving family. Gil, last question before I will repeat some of the messages. People who are watching this podcast always ask us.
Mhm.
They're in the States, they're maybe in Australia or Europe. They're watching it. What can they do from their homes or from their communities around the world? What do you think? What do you expect or hope that people will do?
Well, I think when you speak about such an event like a hostage situation, the fact that we still talk about it almost 2 years later is thanks to this place in which I'm sitting right now, which is the headquarters of the Hostage Families Forum. And the fact that we still talk about it is thanks to the campaigns that we're doing in here, and the fact that we're still on the media, the fact that we do it all over the world. This is thanks to many amazing contributions of people who want this issue to be on the table. And some of my best friends are working or volunteering here to promote this here in Israel and all over the world. So it's thanks to the contribution of amazing people all over the world, and this is an opportunity to thank them for that.
Mhm.
And in your own places, wherever you are, all over the world, I think many people around the world don't understand this war exactly. For them, what they see on the news is that it is the IDF doing horrible things to the innocent people of Gaza, and that's it. And I'm not even trying to explain whether this is right or wrong, but this is not the entire story, because there are still hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. And
Exactly.
what we are fighting for as a people is the lives of these very hostages. And it is our own right to live here in Israel, in this area, and for the stories not to end like they did in Carmel's case. And so to speak about it, to carry out rallies, and maybe even create conversations which you explain, or you can invite members of families of hostages to explain and to tell the stories of the hostages. You can't imagine how powerful stories can change minds all over the world. And I think the pressure of the international community, if it is focused on the right thing, on ending this war, getting the hostages out, not on anything else, not on politics, not on it, but specifically on ending this nightmare and getting hostages out, I think we can make it. I think President Trump can make it, and I think all the leaders of the nations that people are now in. This is something that we can do and we can accomplish together.
So first, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. It was, it's heart wrenching to learn about Carmel and about Kinneret, about your entire family. So I want to thank you, and I want to say to our listeners and people who are watching us, we saw all your comments at the episode, and we thank you so much for participating. And you can also, watch prior episodes. I think this is the 7th or 8th podcast that we are doing. We will be here next Sunday again. We will keep on doing it until we get the 48 people back home. It's down from 50, if you don't know. It's for 2 bodies were recovered, of Ilan Weiss and of Idan Shtivi. So we're going to keep doing it until we get the 48 back. It's really important that people also who lost their lives and were murdered will be back to proper Jewish burial and one proper Muslim burial. It's important to note, because we have another soldier, Muhammad al-Atrash, who was also killed and kidnapped. So you can scan the barcode for this episode if you want to help the hostage and missing families forum. This is a non-governmental body. It's all by volunteers. Nobody's there is being paid. Everybody's doing volunteering work for this cause. Obviously, this podcast is all volunteering. Nobody's being paid. So all of your support goes straight for the cause of helping those people in need. You can join a rally in your area. You can visit the page, or you can just Google Run for Their Lives, and you will find events near you. There was actually a big event today in New York for the 6 who were murdered in captivity. They mentioned them today, dedicated a specific event for them. You can share this podcast. You can share, you can retweet, you can put it on Instagram or elsewhere, or TikTok, whatever you want. You just can send it in email to your friends. And you can keep the hostages in your thoughts, conversations, or prayers. I think every bit of awareness matters to us. And let's keep up the good work and try to bring everybody home. And Gil, thank you again for talking about Carmel in length. And we all hope we could have meet her. Thank
Thank you
you
so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Tal. Thank you for doing this. Thank you all for watching. And let's remember what really matters. We'll fight until the last hostage comes home, and we're
Exactly.
together in this. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Not some, not half, all of them. Now, bring them all, achieve peace.